Hello, everybody. My name is Joe Geier of Mintandrea in Vienna and co-founder of Wetzlar Camera Auctions. I'm really, really excited. We are doing this for the very first time. It's a Zoom meeting, and we are thrilled to share this with you with Kevin Fickling on board. Hello. Thank
Hello.
you very much for joining our first video. Um, I'm thrilled to see you, to talk to you about a lot of things. Please stay until the end. Should be very interesting for a lot of people, actually. So, thank you for joining us, Kevin. And you're so present on social media. You have an Instagram account, you have a YouTube channel where you present your gear, other gear as well, and talk about Leica, talk about your photography, about your fashion and lifestyle photography, and other things. So I'm really excited to hear a lot about you and your stories and insights. First of all, are you fine in LA? How are you? Are the wildfires being
Yeah,
influenced you?
unfortunately, yes, it's impacted some family members, and I think anybody that lives near, I don't live in Los Angeles. I'm about an hour south of there in Orange County. But I think anybody that lives in California, and honestly, many people worldwide will know people that have been impacted by the fire. So, yes, unfortunately, it's been a bit of a tough few weeks, but as we do, we come together and we work through it. So, yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Good that you're healthy and fine.
Yes.
So very, very nice. I would say I would like to start to ask you the question I'm really very interested in. The first is what got you into photography? How did you get actually
Yes.
into photography? Not just like it, but in general.
Of course. Yeah, it started many years ago. I think I was maybe around 10 years old when I got my first camera. It wasn't mine, it was a family's camera. And actually, I started with video stuff first. It wasn't photography. Doing home movies, things like that. But the big thing that really got me into cameras, photography, but specifically video at the time was I was
Mhm.
very into bicycling, so riding bikes. And I made videos of myself and friends riding and trying to
Mhm.
kind of get sponsorship from companies and things like that. I was kind of helping some of the friends, but I love to ride myself. But for some reason, I like being behind the camera instead of in front of the camera, and no one else was kind of doing it. So yeah, I built some very odd video rigs on a budget, and yeah, I kind of started out with video stuff, and then. I took a long break from anything kind of camera related for maybe 10 years. And I have a history of making things. I love to make things. So I owned a few different companies, and one of those was producing bicycles. And at the time, I couldn't afford a photographer, and I thought to myself, I think it actually looks fun to pick up a camera again. And I had a specific look that I wanted to create for my brand, and I knew it would be incredibly expensive to do that to pay someone. So I went down the long road of buying my first camera again after maybe 10 years, and that was a slippery slope. So yeah, I produced these bicycles, and I took photos. Um, at the same time, I was, I when I get into something, I go like overboard, as you guys will see. Uh, if I really enjoy it, uh, I only enjoy something unless I can, if I can kind of go all into it. Um, so unfortunately or fortunately, there was a camera store within walking distance of my house. So I started spending a lot of time in there, and what does this lens do? What does that lens do? You buy your first prime lens, and you get your taste of some shallow depth of field, and yeah, so it kind of snowballed from there. Um, and when I was producing these bicycles, actually, funny enough, my largest client now, which is Shimano, they're the world's biggest
Mhm.
bicycle component manufacturer. Someone there in the marketing team saw a product photo that I had done, and they asked, "Hey," because I was producing bicycles for their like when they would come out with new parts and they wanted to display some of their higher end stuff, they would commission a frame for me. I would build it, and then they would display it on there at trade shows. So someone had seen a product photo that I did, and they said, "Hey, could you, do something similar with some of these pedals that we have?" And I was like, someone's going to pay me to do photography. Of course I can do that, you know? And, but the funny thing is they were like, we kind of wanted on like a concrete background, and they explained like a few things. And through the history of, like I said, making things, I created a backdrop from scratch. I kind of floated the petals with some different things. And it turned out to be a very popular ad for them. So then they came back to me and asked me to do another one. And it just kind of, and then eventually, you know, oh, hey, would you like to go out in the field? You know, I'm like, sure, of course I would. Yeah, so that's kind of how I got my start. And then, you know, it just eventually got to the point where I was like, you know, why am I doing this other thing? I love photography so much. And I was very lucky to be able to kind of transition into it. And yeah, I kind of left everything else behind, and I've been doing photography full time for 7 or 8 years now.
So it came from the necessity, basically,
Yes,
and went into
an
full
obsession.
action mode, you know.
Yes,
So
yes,
that's
exactly.
quite interesting, yeah.
Yeah,
But very impressive, very impressive. So
thank you.
was there also a cinematographer or a photographer which inspired you the most in
Yeah.
taking those images or product images, or is there anybody you focus on or focus on the work of?
Yeah, I mean, with the product photography, I would say not so much. I kind of just experimented. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't really look too much at other things. I kind of wanted to come up with something on my own. Although, you know, as we know in photography, pretty much everything's been done. But I didn't
Mm,
really find too much inspiration in product photography, but definitely in on location photography.
mhm.
A photographer by the name of Sterling Lawrence. He's a Canadian. He was shooting a lot for Shimano, still does, and in my opinion, one of, if not the greatest, mountain biking photographers ever. And just, I mean, for decades, just iconic magazine images, covers. I mean, you name it, he's done it. And I was very lucky to go on some trips with him, do some assisting, and just
Mhm.
really absorbing. I'm just
Right.
absorbing as much information. And you know, a lot of photographers at that level can be a little guarded for certain things, but he was very open and gave me some good advice that I still use to
Yes.
this day. So yeah, he was definitely a big inspiration, and I mean, there's a ton of very talented photographers doing cycling photography, and I've had the privilege to work with some of the best photographers and cinematographers kind of in the world. Ant Hill Films is considered one of the best cycling mountain bike kind of video production houses
Mhm.
in the world, and I've gotten to shoot photography alongside cinematography, assist with their videos, and yeah, they just do, I mean, incredible, you know, top cinematography, and just make some beautiful. So I've been very lucky to, you know, be inspired and be alongside some people
Yes.
like that.
Very nice. Very. Is there, because I know you collect also or
Yes.
mostly Leica. Is there Leica in use in product
Yeah.
photography actually?
Yeah. So I use the SL2S in multi-shot mode. So I definitely use that a lot. It kind of depends on the budget. Actually, you know what's funny? I've been using the new Leica, the Q343,
Mhm.
to shoot a lot of kind of lifestyle slash product photography. It's been actually been working really well for that, especially with the leaf shutter. Using flash works really nice. So that's been a good one that I use. Or the SL with, I use the Sigma L mount macro lenses. I really like
Mhm.
those as well. So yeah, those are two that I use. But I always have kind of a combination of kit on me. My specialty, I kind of have this triangle of skills. I tell people I'm able to ride a bike pretty decently. I can take a decent photo, and I have a very good understanding of a bicycle. So what that allows me to do is go out into harsh conditions, crazy. I mean, I've cycled across Scotland from end to end. You know, basically camping along the way and photographing. I've followed some of the top mountain bike race series all through Europe, through Austria, through Switzerland, all through the Alps. And, you know, those are very grueling days where I'm riding sometimes 8 to 10 hours on the bike with all my equipment on me. And I'm kind of basically, it's kind of a week long process for those races. And I'm working with one other guy. And basically, it's like rally car racing where there's stages. So there's usually about 10 to 12
Mhm.
stages. And we pre run the course, and we basically come up with our own course that kind of zigzags and interlinks back and forth between the course, because what we're doing is like maybe I start stage one somewhere along the course,
Yeah.
and then he's on stage two, and then I leapfrog to three or four, and we're kind of always constantly leapfrogging each other. But what that means is a lot of time I'm riding on the professional course, or I'm cutting across through goat trails and crazy mountains, and I mean, just yeah, some pretty terrifying stuff, to be honest. But without those three skills, you know, it kind of is, it allows me to create some unique images for sure.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Very interesting insight for me. It's quite an amazing story as well.
Thank you.
And insight. Yeah, I didn't know that, but extremely interesting. Yeah. Did you use the SL3-S just out of interest for
Yeah,
Cine already
I
with that
haven't.
6K and stuff? Because I'm really not into it and I don't know much about it.
Yeah,
But it's the next hype, or it's the hype
yeah,
now, I think. Yeah.
yep.
And did you try that?
Yeah, I actually went to New York recently. I just got back yesterday. My friend Gajan was the global launch ambassador for the SL3S. So it was great to go out and support him, and he's been using the camera a lot, and I also got to use it. So I shot with it a bit this weekend, and yeah, I'm looking forward to adding that to the kit for sure.
Good to know. Speaking of your work and about Leica, um, to which we're coming in a few seconds again. I've seen videos and a lot of information that you do have a Fuji mini lab, frontier
Yes,
lab, scanning room, I
yes,
would say, no? Dark room,
yeah.
scanning room and stuff,
I
which is really impressive, which I haven't seen in private homes too often, I would say.
yes,
How did you get that and into that and share
yeah.
some insights, please?
So
That's a
so
really
I think this is a story that you will especially appreciate, because I think as a dealer like yourself, and some of the inventory I see that you guys get, I mean, I'm sure you've had similar experiences. But let me break down how I came across it first. So um, a friend of a friend responded to a Facebook Marketplace ad for a Hasselblad X fan, and he showed up to the house, and the lady opens the door, and it's one of those moments where he goes, "Forget the X fan. What is all that other stuff?" And it was, I don't even want, I like a once in a lifetime type thing. So it was an estate sale, and he goes inside, and it was a very large house. I would say maybe 8 to 10 bedrooms, and there was stuff packed to the roof on every aisle, so much so that you had to walk sideways. You couldn't walk normally down all the hallways. And if you could imagine your dream photography scenario of equipment, multiply that by about 100. This is what was in this house. Unfortunately for me, the Leica stuff someone had already come across. It was, as these estate sale things go, a bit of a kind of a chaotic situation, unfortunately. But for me, I enjoy shooting a lot of large format film, 4x5, especially 8x10. I do wet plate collodion 8x10 as well. Um, so he calls my friend and goes, "Drop whatever you're doing. You need to drive here." It was like a 2 hour drive. And my friend's like, "No, no, no." He's like, "No, you don't understand. You will regret this for the rest of your life." So he calls me and goes, "I'm coming to pick you up in 15 minutes." I'm like, "What?" You know, we show up, and yeah, I mean, things that, are you familiar with like the Aero Ektar lens, which is
yeah, yeah.
aerial? Yeah. So the aerial reconnaissance lens, they used it in World War II. It was, I think, $50,000. Kodak made it for the U.S., I think, Navy and Air Force at the time. And yeah, so it's one of the most radioactive lenses ever made. But basically, what it is, if you guys are familiar with Noctiluxes, it's essentially a Noctilux for 4x5. Incredibly shallow depth of field, and they're relatively hard to find, right? Well, it took me like, I don't know, a year to find the perfect one for myself, which I had. And I asked, "Hey, do you have any Aero Ektars by chance?" He goes, "Hold on." And he takes me back into the room. There's 16 of them sitting there, all with the perfect cameras, the adapters. I mean, I'm like, what? X pans, there's 5 X pans there. Deerdorf 20 by 24 large format cameras, there's 3 of them sitting there. I mean, just anything you could imagine photography wise, especially the guy was very into large format, I guess. So yeah, it was insane. And in one of the rooms, it was his kind of scanning setup. So there was a Fuji Frontier SP3000, which is kind of my main big scanner that I have. Yeah, so I picked that up, and when I went to pick up the scanner, they come out with this box saying, "Hey, we found all these accessories." And to be honest, I knew it was a good scanner, but I wasn't like 100% sure. But luckily, there's a place that services them near me, so I was able to take it in and get it serviced. But when I went to pick it up, they bring out this box of accessories, and it's all the film mask. And I mean, these are like incredibly rare, right? And there's 40 of them in there, and all these. I mean, it's just like, I don't know, man. It was, I can't put into words how amazing it was. But yeah, it was one of those once in a lifetime things. So I got that scanner. I got a Jobo developing tank. Um, and it was kind of right at the time when I was moving into a new house. So I said, you know what? I'm going to dedicate one half of the garage. I'm just going to, from start to finish, build a film lab. And this was when I was really getting into 8x10. And although the scanner that I got doesn't do 8x10, when you shoot the large format, especially like that, you can be looking at $150, $200 a shot by the time you buy the film, pay to have it developed, have it scanned. And I just love kind of the process. So I said, you know what? I'm going to set everything up so I can do this myself. And luckily, I have a friend near me that's as crazy as I am about it. So basically, what we do, we let our film marinate, and then he comes over. And we can easily do 30, 40, 50 rolls in a day, no problem, in my setup. So yeah, it's pretty crazy. Definitely, like you said, not something you see in someone's house every day, and I'm very thankful to have it.
And the person was a collector, or was he having a shop and setting it aside for his? I mean, who has six erectors and
Yeah,
multiple expands and I know it's
yeah. I
two,
don't.
you have two or a third one, but then why six? And but anyway,
Yeah,
if I know several collectors who are also owners of camera shops who put the most interesting stuff aside
right.
for their own collection, and then they can end up with duplicates, let's say, but
Yes.
not six, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
So a bit of a maniac there, but in a good way.
Yeah.
Still,
Exactly. Yeah. Like
um,
I said, it was crazy, but
but you
yeah, it
don't
was
see that
no,
as
for sure.
often, you know.
Yeah.
So and I also don't know many people who would dedicate a full room, well, to their collection, obviously, but not to a mini lab, I would say.
Yeah.
Uh,
Definitely.
and and that's, yeah, that's quite special, I would say.
Yeah,
So
it
that
was.
it impressed me, and also the work behind it, and the time that goes into that as well, because I used to have a dark room as well, and then
Okay.
under 3 hours you don't have to go in there anyway. So I know the time that goes into that, and I also did large format and 8x10 and 4x5. So you have to love to
Yes.
do that. Otherwise, you wouldn't, or
Yes.
you're as crazy as me. Um,
Or
well,
both. Yes.
well said. Yes, let's jump into our passion, maybe.
Yes.
Five letter brand here. Behind me,
Yep.
something behind you as well, or
Yes.
next
I
to
have,
you,
I have a few
maybe.
here we can talk about.
Right.
Yep.
100 years of Leica, actually.
Yes.
Um, I know from your Instagram and YouTube channel that you are mostly into M,
Yes.
and I think you also use everything you
Yes.
have. So it's not just shelf queens and collecting dust. What was your first and why?
Yes. My first Leica ever, and I didn't realize at the time how special it was, and that I should have kept the thing. But it was an M3, a double stroke. I don't remember exactly what year. So yeah, a double stroke M3 with a collapsible Summicron. And it's kind of funny because at the time, I that was what I could afford. At that time, maybe almost 10 years ago, those were pretty, affordable. That was one I would say maybe your most affordable kind of. I mean, maybe an M42 or something would be more affordable, but an M3 was, I was well under $1,000 for the body and
Mhm.
lens, and it was in beautiful condition. And at that time, I didn't realize how special some of the vintage stuff was like that. I mean, now to this day, that lens is one of my favorites ever, and I have, many different lenses. But yeah, so the M3 kind of got me hooked, and I had that lens, and it kind of reinvigorated my love for shooting film. And but and I bought a M240 was my first digital M, so I kind of used that and a 50 Summilux. But what happened is that was kind of around that time when I was transitioning into photography as a profession, like we talked about, and I needed autofocus, so I had to sell all my Leica stuff.
Right.
And at the time, what was kind of in the budget was some Fujifilm stuff,
Mhm.
which I still use. And yeah, so that was kind of what I used for a long time. But what got me back in is I bought a Q from someone, and then I bought an M, and then many M's. So
Yeah.
yes, that's kind of what happened. That I got my initial kind of bug for it, and then unfortunately had to sell it all to kind of afford some autofocus gear. But once my photography career took off and a few other things, I was able to afford an M again and kind of started to build the collection that I have today.
So it started with the classic, with the M3,
Yes,
and as it goes, sometimes you have to sell to buy
yes,
something else, and then maybe you can upgrade or come back, or
yep,
well, that's normal. It's the good thing about that user gear as well, that you can trade it in, and it doesn't lose that much value if you do
right,
with a deal, or you sell it privately and get a good deal, or snap up a good deal online on some marketplaces, wherever.
of
Um,
course.
but that's the nice thing about a Leica. Not on purpose, actually,
No,
no.
no, it wasn't. But to this day, the M3 is my favorite camera of all time, not just my favorite Leica.
Mine is.
And that's because I'm a 50 millimeter shooter. And as we know, no other Leica is as good to shoot a 50 as an M3,
Yeah,
So, yeah,
100%.
yes.
100%. Um, I've seen you've got something recently
Yes.
into your collection, which is
This.
very rare.
Yes.
Tell us.
Unfortunately, I don't have the lens, but the camera is pretty beautiful. But the lens on here is pretty rare as well.
Yes.
But yes, this is so yeah, it's the 262 red edition body, which is really beautiful. And I think yeah, they only made 100 of these, so quite beautiful and rare. And also the lens is the Noctilux Titan, which came out I think a year and a half ago or so, which they
Yeah.
also only made 100 of. So I think that titanium on the red is pretty beautiful for sure.
Yeah. Looks pretty. We could use a lot more of these lenses, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree for
For,
sure.
for
But
all the
yeah, so
titanium.
that's the only. I mean, I do collect digital M's. For me, the lens has to be very special in the set. Not disregarding this, but most of the time, if I'm buying a digital M, for me it has to be a very special lens. And but for me, mostly I would say 80% I'm collecting film, and my biggest passion is vintage M's, M3 and M2 mostly. And like you said, I use everything that I own. And through my journey, I've bought a few pieces that one in particular that I thought would be my forever camera. It's quite an expensive camera, but what happened is once I opened it, it was brand new, and I realized, if I mount a strap on this camera, I'm going to lose a lot of money. And although I do have, a nice collection, I can't afford to kind of, you know, devalue something that much. So I ended up selling that camera, and but that was a good journey to kind of learn. Hey, you know what? I need to buy stuff that has age and patina and a little bit of wear, or just things
Mhm.
that I wouldn't feel bad using because I don't have anything against shelf queens or collecting. Not people can do whatever they want with their stuff. I
Yeah.
have just like shooting film and digital. One is not better. I have no problem with people collecting, but it's just for me personally. I love to use all my stuff, and yeah, I love to make photos with it. And I've taken some of my rarest cameras into some pretty crazy conditions and things you maybe wouldn't normally see, but that's the way I do things personally.
No, I really like that you put on a strap also on a limited edition. Maybe it's not a six-figure
Yeah,
valued camera, but to see somebody walking out with a limited edition, maybe where there are 250 pieces made or 1,000 pieces made, which is still less compared to the production figures like I puts out, is nice to see because I mean some of them are created as uh, already collectible
yes,
cameras, just when they come out, and only a portion of that come to actual use, I would say.
Yes, definitely.
And that's a real pity, actually. Have you seen the 70 years Leica M limited edition already? The
Yes,
M
yeah, I
platinum
did see that.
finish.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Did
Um,
you see that in your hands, actually?
I haven't held it, but
Yeah,
yeah, just seen photos and yeah, that would be one example of again, not only is it a camera I have to use, but it's a camera that I have to love to buy. And I was offered one, but passed on it just because it wasn't something that I was really in love with. I think it's beautiful. But just, yeah, that's the thing. I don't buy things just to collect them. I buy things because
yeah,
I love them and because I want to use them. So it has to be both of those two things together. But yeah, I mean, it's a gorgeous set. Absolutely. Especially the long lugs on the camera. I'm like, oh
yeah.
man, that's the long lug is maybe tied for my favorite feature on an M. So when I saw that, man, it was it was hard to resist for sure.
No,
Yes.
100%. I talked about this with Josh Lehrer from Leica Store Miami as well, because
Yes.
they did that product photo with the strap attached, and nobody could really see
Yeah.
those Buderii strap lugs, which
Yes.
is a real pity with, because I think that's the most beautiful part of that
I
camera,
agree.
actually.
100%.
Um, so
Yes.
yeah, and I really like it's an edition, because I think it's too many editions, but it's an
I
edition
agree.
for their own brand.
Yeah,
It's a celebration of their own brand. It's not something with a with a fashion brand like Moncler, for example, on a
yeah,
Leica X or something,
yeah,
which I quite frankly don't understand all the time.
yeah,
What's your take on that? If
yeah. I mean, I that's another I would say pretty controversial topic within Leica is I would say special editions in general, and then speaking about specific brands. Like I have this is the Hermes edition MP here, um, which a lot of people don't realize that Hermes was, I believe it. I don't know if they were a majority shareholder, but they owned a large portion of Leica for quite some time,
yeah,
and that's why these editions existed. But as far as I don't mind like doing the special editions of all at all. I mean, people might say, "Duh." I mean, you own a lot of them, right? But for me, if the special editions generate revenue so that they can produce M11s and maybe an M12 down the road, and the new cameras, if this allows them to do that, then there's nothing wrong with them. And these people, if you don't like them, that's fine. Just like the platinum for me, I don't need to buy it. It's okay. There's
yeah,
250 other people out there that will buy it and generate revenue,
for
and
sure.
create some other cool cameras down the road. So for me, I don't certain ones aren't my style, but others are, and I really I love all the special editions, and I hope that they will do more in the future because it seems to have slowed down quite a bit as far as like the really special ones. But I guess it's hard to kind of keep coming up with new ones like this one here is one of my favorite modern I guess you could say modern. It's kind of neo vintage at this point. It's over 20 years old, but it's the MP3,
Yeah,
and that the original MP is my favorite camera, kind of if holy grail camera if I could have anything with price, or maybe an M3D, which the remake of that would be an even better version of this, of course. But do you guys still have that one? Oh, yes. Okay. Maybe someday. Maybe someday. Maybe if I sell my whole collection now. But yeah, that's that. I wish they would do more things like this. I mean, I look at this camera and there's so many features and things that they changed over it. It's honestly incredible. I mean, even little details, down to like exposing the screws in the front and the long strap lugs, adding the M2 counter. Like this camera is just beautiful. The raised windows,
yeah.
but I think number one, they're not going to reproduce something like this. So it's like, they've pulled a lot of heritage in the past. So yeah, it will be interesting to kind of see where special editions go in the future.
It's very interesting, because I think there are certain special editions, also digital editions, which will hold their value for a specific reason. Also for photographers, like a Jim Marshall edition. I think you have one as well,
Yes,
um,
yes,
which is which is totally different to every other camera, which just doesn't have just this. a different logo or a badge
Exactly.
put on the camera.
Yes.
That's interesting. That's nice, and that's
Yeah.
a different approach, which I like. For example, with the Leica M6, what they did like 40 years ago, and then the company nearly went bankrupt, and then they brought out a limited edition for Christopher Columbus.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
has nothing to do with like, but anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
I've talked about it, but yeah, but you see where this is going, but and
I
you know what I mean,
yeah.
basically.
I mean, I
Um,
do love the special editions, but I think you and I share the passion for the vintage stuff. I mean, that stuff that was not considered special, at the time, and especially for me, my favorite camera is a tool camera. This is kind of my, I would say, crown jewel of my collection. This is what I sold that camera for to be able to buy that I was talking about earlier. So it's the M3 Olive. Okay. And I'm going to attempt to pronounce it, and I want you to critique how I pronounce it, okay? Because I've been working on it. The Bundeseigentum. It's close, right?
Sounds very close, actually, very
Okay,
close.
okay, good.
Yeah.
So this is
Bundeseigentum, yeah, it's very close.
okay.
Good,
But
good, good.
yeah, this is something that's very special to me. Like I said, M3
Oh,
is my
that's
favorite
nice.
camera.
Yeah.
Um, and generally I'm shooting a 50 on it. I have the goggled 35 steel rim on here, but yeah,
Yeah.
the M3 Olive. This camera just has the right amount of kind of wear on it. It has some, I don't know if you can see on the camera, but it has some brassing around the edges, which I've added a bit myself from using it. And yeah, it's yeah, this is just something so special to me. I think this is the most undervalued of the kind of higher end,
Hmm.
collectibles, in my opinion. This is a mid batch one, which of course is going to be kind of in your lower value of the M3 Olives. But even so, any of them, I think, compared when you consider how rare these are compared to like, even an MP, I think they made half as many of these, right?
Yeah.
And I understand the heritage behind the MP, and of course why that will always be more expensive. But I think the M3 Olive eventually will reach, much higher prices than they are today. But for me, that doesn't matter. I My girlfriend's also very into Leica, and I told her my M3 Olive and my titanium Noctilux, you're gonna bury me in the ground with that if something happens to me. And everything else you could do what you want with it, but the M3 Olive and the titanium Noctilux are kind of my holy grail pieces. So yeah, that's but yeah, the older stuff for me, and especially something like this, like I don't know who held this camera, who used it, what images it may have taken, where it's been, what it's seen. That to me is so amazing with the vintage
Yeah.
cameras like this. And like I said, I love worn things like this. This is my M2 original black paint, or what's left of the black paint.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, just the stories behind even how I came across these cameras. This one, someone posted on in a Facebook group and was asking where they could get it restored. And luckily, yes, that was my reaction. I about had a heart attack. Luckily, I had seen it within like a few minutes of it being posted, and I sent him a message. I say, "Stop! Do not do that. Take the ad down. Let's work out a deal, and for me to acquire it as is." And it turned out that this guy was helping sell it for the original owner. He was a businessman that traveled all around the world, and he owned the camera since 1966 and carried it
Nice.
with him every day, all through his travels. And yeah, this is all the natural patina you see from him using it for 60 plus years, and that to me is just like so amazing. So yeah, I love cameras like this, and the best thing, because I like to use them, the worst that's going to happen is I add a little more brassing to it, which will not change a thing.
No, in this condition, it doesn't make a difference at all.
No,
Even if it's a little bit better, it doesn't change that much. If it's a
right,
brand new product and you put
of
a strap
course,
on, as you
yep,
said, and you scratch the strap lugs, can be like
yes,
30-40% less in value.
yes.
That's very true. But I've seen on that M2 is there a special plug on the flash connection plug? Is it also
Oh
black?
yeah, that yeah, it's a brass
What is it?
black. I don't really know even where this came from.
Uh-huh.
And as we go down this collecting journey, I'm very very lucky to own the M3 Olive. My uh like I said, M3 is my favorite. My second favorite camera is a black paint M3, which I'm also very lucky to own. So as we go down this collecting journey and we kind of acquire some of our, holy grail pieces, I started to look into weird things like accessories, which you see on this camera here. So like these levers here, this is one as far as I can tell, and from asked from a few people, this is like one of the original ones that was used on the MPs by Magnum photographers. So this is, yes. So I'm obsessed with
Same
finding
here.
these and different versions and all, these like stupid things. And, a lot of times, yes, exactly. So OZTNOs, like these are another obsession of mine, finding like the different engravings, these pieces. And I love putting weird accessories on my M's. And yeah, I love collecting torpedo viewfinders, the more slim kind of
Yeah.
1930s style viewfinders. I love those. And yeah, just accessories. I'm obsessed with lens hoods. So I'm always looking for different lens hoods and finishes. And yeah, it's an obsession would be a understatement. Absolutely.
But it's also a never-ending story because you can add so many accessories, and
Yes.
I'm sure not even Leica knows how many accessories
Yes.
they have produced in the past 100
Exactly.
years now. So that's also an important part, I think, in collecting. It's not just about cameras and lenses; it's also accessories.
Yes.
And there are so many rare accessories as well, and still not appreciated
Yes.
or undervalued as well in that not money wise, but in the sense of that you can add something also to the shelf or use or whatever. So
Yep.
there is a lot to explore
This
here as
this is
well.
this is another
It's nice.
special accessory here I forgot to put on the table. So this is the olive case for the M3. Not a matching serial number, but still very special. This I would say is a shelf queen. Not the
Yes.
leather, of course, is a bit delicate, but honestly, it is in very good condition. You totally could use it, but eventually, I would love to add some of the different lenses and kind of pieces,
Mhm.
maybe one of the bags someday. But yeah, as you know, these are quite expensive. So things like this,
Yes.
it's a rare find. So these are really fun. Absolutely.
You could still use it in a normal brown case and
Yeah,
then keep that
exactly.
aside. That's a
Yes,
good
yes,
idea, I would say.
yes,
Um, well, talking about it's not only about cameras. Is there a favorite lens in your collection, in your
yes.
possession, or is there a favorite still you're looking for? You're
Um,
dreaming of, basically. I know you have the double A and you have a Noctilux,
yeah,
blah, 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 but
yeah. I would say my holy grail lens is oddly enough is a modern lens. So it is this one. It's the titanium Noctilux, the 0.95. I love using this lens. And when people talk about the Leica look, I feel like no other lens gives you that like the 0.95 Noctilux. It's not overly sharp. It has incredibly dreamy bokeh. And I think just the way this lens renders, when you see a photo from this, I don't think any other Leica lens that I can easily pick out like this. And when I see a photo from this done right, I know immediately what lens took it.
mhm,
And
yeah.
I think that's very special. And something that I do in my work is use cameras and lenses that maybe would not be used for sports and action. Like I shoot the Noctilux wide open for sports and action on the SL camera in burst mode and pre-focusing and through experience. If you nail a photo from this, it's unlike anything else. So I love this, and then to own it kind of in one of if not the ultimate version in titanium is pretty special to me. And I have a big sentimental kind of attachment to this and the whole story of how I came to acquire the lens. It was the last one that Leica ever sold, very special,
Mhm.
and it was kind of one of those things where I was told, there's no way you're going to get one,
Yeah.
and then months later, hey, there might be a chance, and then for many months, I made it my absolute goal in life to acquire this lens. And yeah, so I was there with many friends and things like that. So that's something, some of these cameras I have a very sentimental attachment to. But this lens is my ultimate for vintage lenses, the 50 rigid and black paint. I guess you could say version one of brass mount would be kind of the ultimate version. I would love to own of this someday. This is a version 2, but still very special. The rigid I absolutely love. Um, the double spherical, as you mentioned, that's a very special 35 that I love. Yeah, what else? The 8 element. I love the 8 element. I'm lucky to have one in black. Actually, this is on my black paint M2 that I got from the Wetzlar camera auction from you guys. So appreciate that. Another black paint M2 in a little nicer condition. You know, not quite as worn as this one, but still with some nice brassing, and yeah, actually with both with 8 elements, because this was a pretty common combination, right? M2 with the 35 millimeter frame lines. You would see an 8 element. So this is kind of one of your more rare ones in black with the brass focus tab and a red scale. So this is the 8 element for a vintage 35 is one of my favorites. And the collapsible radioactive Summicron. That's one I collect. I have like
Mhm.
maybe 5 of those, and I'm always on the lookout for those very special lenses. But recently, like you and I have talked about, I've kind of begun to venture outside of Leica a little bit.
Yeah.
Look at vintage cinema glass and some more obscure lenses. And unfortunately, a lot of those are so rare and valuable that it's unbelievable. But you know, I would say maybe half those lenses. I don't know if you agree, but you know, tell me if you agree or not. Half those lenses, I would say, they're not expensive necessarily because they render beautifully. It's because they're very rare, right? Some of them, and then I would say half of them are expensive because they're rare and they render beautifully and create something really unique. So those are more of the lenses that I'm going for. I'm lucky to own a Dallmeyer Super 6 and a Stigmat. That's one of my favorite lenses of all time, probably top 3, 4 lenses. It's one that I take out with me, I would say, when I'm photographing for myself, it's a very common lens. Maybe half the time I'm shooting that lens.
Yeah.
It just creates something really unique, and that's just such a rare, special lens that again probably is not getting taken out too often. But for me, I'm taking it out at least once a week to go photograph with it. And
Nice.
the version that I have is converted to M mount, and it's perfectly rangefinder coupled. So that's makes it nice. I can use it on my film M's, my digital cameras. I don't have to just use live view. So yeah, I'm really obsessed with lenses, modern and vintage. This is another kind of newer acquisition. It's the black
Ooh.
steel rim. Yep. So I just was photographing in the snow with this in New York. That was fun. Probably the only black steel rim that's been out in the snow, but got some beautiful images and a more modern kind of special camera here for me. I bought this M7 in Italy when I was there on a trip with my girlfriend. So we found it in a kind of cool store there, and it was originally silver though. As you know, they didn't make M7s in
Yeah.
black paint normally. So Leica was kind enough to convert this to black paint for me, and a lot of little details like we were talking about, the black strap lugs, the black lens release. But one of my favorite features is the black frame counter here. So this combination, the black steel rim on this M7 like this is it's gorgeous. So yeah, I mean, I have favorite lenses, but I think something that I'm really trying to do with my YouTube channel and just kind of educating other Leica photographers that maybe have only experienced the modern stuff. All these different lenses are paintbrushes, and like you said, I think the coolest thing about Leica that makes them so unique is that I can take a lens even from I mean, one of my favorites is a Hector 73 1.9 from 19
Hmm.
I think 1936 mine is, right, and I can put that on my brand new M11 monochrome and create beautiful images. And then I can take a brand new 35 Apo or 50 Apo and put that on my 1954 M3. No problem. And no other brand has that kind of compatibility like that.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, lenses are what make Leica special.
It's a totally different also result if you put a vintage lens on a modern camera and vice versa as
Yep.
well. So if you use an Apo lens with an M3, for example,
Yes.
it's also it's an amazing result basically.
Absolutely.
And
Yes.
and and to come back to my initial question is because people ask what camera do you use? But
Yeah.
you could use also a Leica lens on a different camera
Of course.
and it might be the same or even a better or slightly worse result. But it's
Yeah.
for me it's 70% the
Definitely.
lens, I would say,
For sure. Or more.
and or more
Yes.
maybe. And but I'm a tech nerd or a gearhead, let's say.
Yeah.
I like the mechanics of the mechanical cameras. I'm not too much into digital. Um, so I really like the handling, the feeling of an M3, of an early
Yes.
M3. It's a difference for me, at least,
Yes.
if you handle an early M3 or a later M3.
Of
Um,
course.
Not speaking about M4, M5 CL
Yeah.
or something in between. So that's where my passion is coming from, and it makes a huge difference. You know, if you have a coated lens or an uncoated lens, uh,
Yes.
if it's made in 1932, the same lens made in 1945. It's a huge difference. The radioactive Summicron, for example, as you mentioned, you've got five pieces. I think it's the most difficult lens to find in a very, very good condition. You can find
Yes.
hundreds of used examples, and the lens coating and the front lens is very fragile,
Yep.
and so is the inner coating as well. So if you find a perfect example and it's double the price of a normal one,
Yeah.
just buy it. Just don't think about it,
Absolutely.
just buy it.
Yeah.
Just get
Yeah.
it. Because the chance to find another perfect example is, I don't know. I've seen like three or four in 30 years now, and
Yeah.
or 25 years. So that's something which I really recommend to everybody. If you find a perfect one, just buy it.
For sure. Yeah.
Just get
I
it.
mean, lenses like that, it's like I said, I don't buy stuff to invest. I think I've sold one camera in 3 or 4 years, that one camera, but it's nice to buy things that at minimum, if you use them, you enjoy them. Maybe you want to be a little more careful with something like, the mint piece that you're talking about. A lot of these older cameras, if anything, they're going to retain their value, and in a few years, if you want to upgrade, you want to move on, it's not for you. You can sell it and at least make out what you paid for it. Or a lot of times, you can make a little bit of money. But I'm never speculating on kind of investment pieces and things like that. I just buy what I love, and I think that's really important.
I think that's first and foremost the most important thing, to buy what you like. Don't
Yes.
don't always go with the hype.
Yeah.
Uh, Check out and try everything. It's still a lot of money. A Leica,
Yes.
we're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars or euros.
Yep.
Uh, it's an expensive hobby. I never told any customer, friend, whatever, it's an investment,
Right.
because it's maybe an investment into your hobby,
Yeah.
for sure, or your job if you use it professionally, and you can make some money with the results of your photography, and then you get money out of it. But don't expect
Yes.
that the gear increases every time. We've seen
Right.
we've seen ups and downs,
Yep.
and don't put your last penny into gear. You might
Yes.
uh,
Absolutely.
not get more out of it.
Yeah.
So that's the truth. Something very interesting of the black paint M7, because Leica did it for you. I know they don't do it any longer
Correct.
because they have such a backlog, so they don't offer that to finish the camera in black paint any longer, unfortunately, since last
Yeah.
year, I think. So you're
Yes.
a lucky owner here,
Yep. I was one of the
which is
last, I think.
yeah, which is really nice to see the black Sumilux in use, actually, because they only
Yeah.
made 200 pieces again,
Yep.
limited. That's very nice, and I think it's also really nice for you and for your passion and for your memory that you purchase something on a trip
Yes. Yes.
in a
Absolutely.
in a different store on a different
Yep.
location. So you have that memory and you can
Yeah.
connect with that. I think that's really nice. I mean, stick to your stores,
Yeah.
but
Definitely.
that's really nice. Nice
Yeah. I mean,
thing that if you
yeah,
travel and get
it's
something
good to
very
do
good.
that, and I think something to mention with all this vintage stuff, because you and I, and you especially, you're in it every day. We have experience with it. We know what to look for. For people that are watching this that maybe want to start getting into vintage, what I tell them is you really, what it comes down to, and I would say this is more the very special pieces, you need to educate yourself. You need to do your own research. What I've done, I created a database of every auction for the last 20 years and cameras sold, and Douglas So's book, and looking through. I mean, I just created,
Me,
and going to see stuff in person, looking at your auction, and you, with the really rare stuff, you have to determine yourself whether you feel it's authentic or not. And I
no,
think that's very important. Um, and then when it comes to, a second aspect of that, I would say find someone that you can really trust, a dealer, because that's really important to develop a good relationship. They can understand what you enjoy, the pieces you like, and they can also, provide, like yourself, uh, some, confidence in authenticity. So I think that's very important. And but the cool thing is you don't need to start with an M3 Olive. You can buy
no,
things, even a regular collapsible Summicron in great condition. It's an incredible lens. I mean, you put that with like my technician that I use. He's like shoot a rigid or a collapsible with some T-Max 100 and like shooting an f4, and like he gives me some things, and you do that, and you're like, you do a big scan of it and you're just blown away by the results, or even those older lenses on new cameras. So a rigid Summicron is around $1,000 to $2,000 depending on the condition. Same, a collapsible is a little bit less. A radioactive is in that range. So this isn't, I would say, cheap or stuff, but in relative and Leica terms, you can kind of
yeah,
inexpensively get into some incredible stuff that just renders beautifully. Some of my favorite rendering lenses are stuff that's a little more inexpensive than the uber kind of crazy rare
yeah.
stuff, right?
First and foremost, buy what you like. That's important. Or maybe the most important for
Yes.
me. Or what I tell to customers and friends. Of course, educate yourself. Extremely important because there are so many sources nowadays with internet, online sales, auction houses, etc. Do your research, do your own research, double check, triple check if it's necessary. Also very important. And of course, I have to say, because I'm a dealer, but also I bought something for my collection. It makes a difference where you buy. If you,
Absolutely. and
yeah,
and for resale
I
too,
made
it does.
mistakes as well. I
Yeah,
bought in places, I got scammed, whatever.
absolutely.
So that's also part of the research, I would say.
Yes.
So and
Yes.
but you will make mistakes on your journey of collecting,
Yeah.
um, and what we do in our auction, for example, it doesn't have to be the black paint M3, the M3 olive, or the black paint, whatever, or the Leica Zero. If you find a normal product which was a serial production product, which is or which has never been sold as a collectible or
Yeah.
was as rare because it was used as a tool, like a
Yes.
like a rigid Summicron, for example. But
Yeah.
to find one in perfect, really perfect condition, like I say, 100%, because it's a big difference for me if it's new or like new. There's a
Yeah.
huge difference basically,
There
and to
is
find
absolutely.
something with box and papers in new condition is as rare as finding an Olive M3, for example.
Yeah, or
Uh,
maybe more rare. Yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah.
maybe even more, even more rare, because
Yeah.
I sold regular stuff, which I said, to find something in such and such condition is much. It's as I've seen more like a zeros
Yeah.
in my lifetime than perfect examples of that product. So
Yeah.
condition, condition, condition. That's my advice. Uh,
Okay.
Number three, I would say, because only the top quality is also holding value.
Yeah.
Still, I won't say it's an investment because we don't have a glass ball. We don't know what
Yeah.
it's going to be in 20 years or
Absolutely.
50. So, but from my experience, condition, condition, condition.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's important for sure. Definitely. Yeah.
Um, I think you have showed plenty of gear. I didn't expect to see that much on
Yeah,
your
I
table,
mean, there's a lot of fun stuff,
actually.
I mean,
Uh,
we touched a little bit on the titanium pieces, and like the M7 Titan. The titanium is a big thing that I
nice.
love.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
hammer
solid
tones.
titanium.
It is.
solid
The
titanium.
M7 is pretty amazing. I mean, I
Yeah,
think this is the most titanium they ever did on a camera, like
yeah,
as far as the amount of parts changed
yeah.
and yeah, but yeah, it was great talking, and I could go on, I'm sure as you could for hours and hours talking about this stuff.
100%, 100% agreed. I hope you're coming in May
Yes, yes, I
with
am
LSI,
absolutely.
with Leica Society International,
Yes,
former Leica Historical Society of America, with friends and fellow collectors and users.
yes,
Uh, I hope you come and visit, and we will see us in Vienna in May.
yeah,
Maybe even in Wetzlar, because I missed the last Wetzlar meeting, unfortunately. But anyway, if you're in Vienna, uh, come around
yes,
with
yeah. I'm
one
looking
or two
forward to it.
cameras,
Yes. Yeah,
and I'm
maybe we can even do a video. I would love to have you on the channel, and that would be something.
yes,
Yeah, let's plan on that. If you'd be into it, I would love to do that.
100%,
Yes, definitely.
100%.
Sounds
Would
great.
be extremely nice. So I hope this works out now with our first Zoom meeting podcast slash YouTube video. I'm looking
Yes,
forward to seeing more videos on your channel and producing more videos like that as well with fellow collectors. And
yes,
feel free to reach out. As always, comment, like, share, subscribe to all those wonderful
yes.
things. Check out Kevin's channel and Instagram and all the other channels as well, obviously. And stay healthy, and thanks for watching.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
everybody. Bye bye.
Thank you.